Uh, Sean Hess, founder, CEO, Eudaimonia, joining me this morning. How I see it. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Greg. I'm very happy to be here.
So I first heard of Eudaimonia through two of my friends, Dr. Gabrielle Lyon and Don Saladino.
Mm.
Both put up these posts that they were going to be attending at the Eudaimonia Summit. And I immediately was like, what's the Eudaimonia Summit? If they're there, okay, I'm piqued. I'm intrigued. And reached out to you and just grateful for the opportunity to connect with you and talk about it. Let's start at the top. What does eudaimonia mean?
Yeah, well, it is certainly an unusual word and sounds a bit foreign and strange. What attracted me to it was that I encountered the word, I think, just reading online one day, but it dates back actually to Aristotle. It's about as old as you get. So it's an original Greek word. It refers to human flourishing, or really this concept of life well lived, what it is to live a life of meaning and purpose. So it's not something that I would say is particularly about health per se, although when you unpack it, obviously, if we don't have our health, there is simply no possibility of living a meaningful or purposeful life. I think it's a sort of a prerequisite. But what inspired me about it was this holistic vision of living. And for me, the health aspect is obviously the foundation. I've been thinking of or reimagining sort of Maslow's pyramid to, where the base is really just our good health. And then everything else is built on top of that. And, from a societal perspective, I think it's well known that health is actually in decline, not improving across many measures and metrics, including life expectancy and rates of metabolic disorder and obesity and other things. And, I think that the opportunity to bring people together, bring amazing experts like Gabrielle and Don to actually sort of show people and have people learn and commune around these practices is just something that the world needs right now.
Hmm. What does it mean to you? You mentioned this holistic view of life well lived, and with health and wellness and optimization certainly being a big component of it. But what does it mean for you just as a man, husband, father, entrepreneur?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think we all probably, I mean, maybe me more than most right now, trying to produce a large scale event, but I think we all struggle with the feeling of balance, and there's the balance inside our bodies, obviously, of, as we age and staying fit and active and feeling energetic. Um, I think that's all stuff that becomes a more of a struggle as you enter midlife. I think there's a mental health aspect that's very important in that, and that we're also spending a lot of time covering. I mean, this idea of purpose and meaning, I think a lot of people my age, I'm 54, by the way, you have enough perspective to look back at life, and you've learned a lot and you have a lot of wisdom. I think there's also oftentimes a sense of okay, what's next? What do I do now? Have I done enough? You have a lot of these questions, and that all relates to I think mental health. And at the same time, oftentimes we have kids and family, and there's a lot of pressures in work and financial matters and other things. So, I think that all relates to this general bucket of mental health. And yeah, I mean, there is this final sense of I think you start to think more about legacy, purpose, meaning, community, what you're leaving behind in this world as grow into old age. And, those questions too are I think very important. And I think, my hope is that this is viewed holistically in the sense that, yes, we need good physical health. That's obviously important, but the mental health aspect and feeling content and or that we're living a life well lived is equally important. And, we're hoping to explore all of those topics at the event.
Hmm. You made it. Like you wrote the hit song with Wanderlust. And I'm also curious, like after that, you've experienced it, you've produced large scale events, you have built a large company and were successful in exiting there. Why do you want to do it again?
Hmm. Yeah, I've asked myself, I actually wrote a small article on that because it really is something, I mean, and I'm not, one of the things that attracted me to do this event is the chance to explore more in the realm of science, and, science-based information. But so I do not consider myself sort of a deeply, spiritual person in general, but there was something about this that really was a calling. And, I couldn't get the idea out of my head. I've had this idea kicking around in my head for 5 years. Part of it is, I think, motivated by a desire to do something. I feel that the political system is extremely dysfunctional, and I feel that the most nonpartisan thing you could probably ever talk about is actually health and good health, since it affects us all. And I don't feel like that's been going in the right direction, and I wanted to have the ability to change it. I also just found it fascinating. I mean, the experience and the takeaway from Wanderlust was very much just the power of community to enforce healthy habits and behavior. And obviously, that sounds pretty boring. No one wants to go to an event because it's going to reinforce their healthy habits. But that's the side effect. What you do is you have a great time, you meet like-minded people, you're inspired, you're encouraged. You take this community back home with you, and you expand that community in your wherever you live. And I really just believe there's a power in that, and a transformational power, not just on the individual level, but also at a societal level. And somewhere along the way, I couldn't get the idea out of my head. And, obviously a few logistical things lined up that made it possible. One of which was, yeah, I exited Wanderlust, but, it really was a calling.
Mm. What did you look at, I guess, in the landscape? There's so much noise out there in this area. And you mentioned you're 54. I'm 51, be 52 in December. My wife is 55. And we have so much noise now that's coming at us. I think we're attuned to, the wanting and the why we want to be healthier and happier and see things holistically and maybe take a step back. We do this. And you get all this noise out there, and it's hard to decipher. Who do you listen to? Who do you trust? The differences throughout, and so many of those individuals are actually going to be at eudaimonia. So
Mhm.
many different names and faces and methodologies and ideologies and statements, that you hear out there are going to be at eudaimonia. And again, this kind of almost like omni-channel, like you got to plan your schedule and look around and figure it out. I guess my question here is, what did you think you could do differently, that you thought you could do better, that you could curate around these people so that, hey, okay, it's all there, but we're going to do something different. And this is a destination. Like you said, plan your schedule at eudaimonia. I plan my schedule for the year about where do I want to go? Where do I want to spend my money, quite frankly, and my time, so that over the course of the year, I could try to, again, live a life well lived and figure
Mhm.
out what my thesis is for that.
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say that I'm not sure that, well, there's a couple philosophical things actually that underlie the vision of the event. One of which is that I am a very deep believer in the concept of speech, and particularly public in-person speech, and dialogue, as being a means for accessing the truth. And what we've tried to create at Eudaimonia is not necessarily a homogeneous group of experts who all think the same way, but actually people who are science-based, who are respected, who are obviously passionate and, let's say, uncompromised in the reasoning for in their beliefs. But they don't all agree. And so what we want to do is bring them together and to have this dialogue and to discuss their agreements and their disagreements in a forum that allows also interactivity from the people who are attending, and hopefully allows people to determine their own truth. So another value underlining the concept is this idea of personal agency. I believe that people are uh, definitely, I mean, certainly the people coming to this conference are more than smart enough to analyze the information being given them to, and to also make intelligent decisions about what is best for them. And that's not, we're not talking about, how to treat necessarily, a cancer or something that's acute, or we're talking about, I guess you'd think of it as the buildup of daily decisions, personal decisions about what to eat and how to sleep and, how to, whether you're meditating or not meditating, and all of these things that feed into health that we're largely driven by personal decisions. And, I think with good information, there's a much better chance for people to really find the practices that work for them. And then the final piece I'll just say on that is that I do not believe that biological sciences in general, and in particular health information, is something that is knowable in the way that, say, math is knowable. I think biological science evolves constantly, and science itself is a means for getting at the truth. It is not the truth itself. And so each of these experts, I think, has uncovered kernels of wisdom that may be very helpful for some people, but it doesn't mean that that kernel of wisdom is going to work for everyone. And I think part of the reason to get together and to question and to try different things is to discover what's most effective for you, what makes you feel the best, where you see the results. And so I think all of those things feed together, and that's how I hope this event is different.
Why is it harder to attract men to events and experiences like this?
Yeah, I actually was sitting there wondering the same thing myself the other day. I mean, I think that it's interesting. I mean, I had a little dialogue with an attendee too over email the other day, and I mean, I think men are more. I think men are generally more resistant to leaving their routine and trying new things, which is just as a generalization, obviously not on any specific level, but we have a routine that we think works, whether that's fitness or diet or whatever, and it's just harder to get us to change. I think that's one piece. I think that yeah, and so there may be experts we've decided to follow, but I don't know if we're constantly in the search for a new one or a new voice or to question those things as much. I think there's also just built into men a bit of a hubris. I mean, at least I know I have it, which is this belief that somehow, oh, well, we'll just power through and it's going to be fine. And, I think one of the great insults perhaps of aging is that you find yourself every so often getting smacked upside the head by, I don't know, an injury, or you gain some weight and you don't understand why, or whatever it is. And you realize that your body and your biology is changing, and maybe you can't just keep doing the things that you've always done. But still, I think that voice is always sort of saying, oh, it'll be fine if I just ignore it or if I just keep doing this. But I think that there's something uniquely male about that, at least in maybe speaking for myself.
Mm. You talked about personal agency, which I love. This
Mm,
notion of personal agency, responsibility, the choices that you make. And I speak a lot around choices you make and actions you take and having standards for yourself.
mhm. Yep.
What are some of your own?
Well, you know, that's also a good question, and one that I mean, I've been joking to people that you know, there's few things that are probably worse for your health and well-being than running a conference on health and well-being. So I do not hold myself up as a paragon, but I will say that yeah, so I mean, what do? I'm constantly physically active, whether that's, in formal things like running or playing tennis or, resistance training. But a lot of the things I do are actually just, I do a ton of yard work and chop wood. And, I mean, I live in the country, so obviously that stuff. But so, the physical activity, I think, is a huge part of it. Meditation practice, which is more sporadic than I want, but it is something that I turn to, and I do think it's very important. I'm obsessed with, cooking and my diet, and luckily I just love to cook. So, for me to be buying fresh and whole foods and making food out of it for the whole family, which is what I do when I'm home, which I'm not now, but that's just another big piece of sort of my own. I find cooking is it's a de-stressor and a mental release for me, as well as obviously something that I know is great for me and my family. So that's something I'm very engaged in. I've been bad on sleep, but I bought an Aura ring, and I've been actually really trying to listen to what it's telling me. And I actually have seen improvements since just having that biometric data, which is obviously a big part of what we're also trying to bring to the fore. Those biomarkers, because that data I think is just really useful to have. As before, I was able to monitor that. I would often notice that, sure, you notice if you feel worse or bad, but it's very hard to track and really see specifically what you're doing. So that's been another big thing. But yeah, right now it's extremely busy, and I've also been telling myself, and I think we all go through these periods in life where, you do have to really just find a little space here and there to get an exercise or make a good meal or do something, because there's just not much time. And there's no doubt that come November 4th, I will be excited to re-engage with my wellness practices.
As you describe meditation, cooking, all of these things, this is where I get kind of fascinated. I'm always fascinated by how anybody does anything. Certainly
Mm.
successful people, how they're able to do all of the things that they seemingly do, and also how you have time to be here this morning and seem relatively calm. And there's got to be a million fires, things that are going on in the events and production business. Do you time block? Do you shut it down? Do you have specific things? You go, okay, I've got to be in Palm Beach to do this, which means I'm away from home, you know, but it also means that I'm going to come home every X amount of day. The things that go back to what you're saying, the choices that you make, the actions that you take, like after 7 p.m., I'm cooking and shutting it down, or these things to create some borders and boundaries for yourself around this gigantic logistical kind of project, that you're scaling.
Yeah, I wish I mean, I should, yeah, I will say that those types of techniques of whether it's time management or, Tim Ferriss World or all those kind of stuff, I have never been great at that, because I just, again, it's, I guess, a way of working. I mean, for me, what I will say that I've been blessed with, and I don't think this is any, this is necessarily something teachable, or it's just that I'm lucky, is that I can concentrate fully fairly quickly on something and switch. So it's not the same as multitasking. I agree with most of the research that suggests that multitasking doesn't really work. But what I can do is kind of spend 15 minutes deeply thinking about something and then fairly quickly jump into something completely different. And whether that's like a physical activity or meditation, or, going from a very technical event thing to a creative piece of the event, which, are obviously different sides of the brain. So that's just my good fortune. And so what that allows me to do, I guess, is to time slice. So if I have 15 minutes, I can find a productive way to use that 15 minutes. And also it allows me, I think, to stay happier in some ways, because I'm a person that I don't like, I mean, I like to exercise the creative side of my brain as well as the sort of logistical analytical side of my brain. And if I end up doing too much of only one side, I actually start to feel unbalanced. And so, this sort of time slicing allows me to, I think, hit both sides and feel that I've had a balanced day in some ways. So I guess that's the best answer I can give.
What are you most excited about for the event, both as a producer and a consumer?
Yeah. Most excited as a producer is it's always the same thing, actually. It's observing. It's a live sociological experiment, right? Or an event. You gather all these people and you're not sure what kind of person you've attracted. You think but you're not sure. And then there's an experience in a physical environment and art and, talks and lectures and ideas. And all of a sudden there's a reaction. And that reaction is hopefully measured in smiles and laughter and other elements of happiness. Um, Curiosity, discovery, all those things. But you just don't know. You never know for sure until you see it in person. So I guess, as a producer, just observing the audience is something that I just can't wait to see, and to see how people react. It's can be the most gratifying thing. Obviously, if it doesn't go well, which I'm not expecting, it can be soul crushing, but it is always something I look forward to. And you know, I think with all events, a lot of the magic happens not so much in the stuff that I do or I program, but again, it's the spaces in between. It's where attendees interact or an impromptu conversation with an expert and some people asking questions, all of that stuff. So that's what I like to see there. You know, personally, you know, I mean, obviously I've been following Andrew Huberman and Mark Hyman for a long time, look up to both of those guys and think they've just been doing incredible work. I'm excited to see them. But there's a ton of talent that, you know, I only know in a cursory manner personally. And, you know, I mean, Sid Mukherjee is a guy who, I mean, I've read one or two of his books. I mean, he's just brilliant and also just a gifted writer. I'm just so excited to hear what he has to say. And I happen to, you know, his topic also branches on AI, and I know he's going to be doing some really interesting research in that front. So I think there's just so many people I can't even really name, but I guess for me, it's a learning experience, probably like it would be for you or everyone else. We have over 90 experts there. There's no way any one human could probably be following all 90 of them in detail. And I think one of the really cool things about it is just to be able to drop in and hear some of these brilliant people and maybe people you haven't heard. So that's from an attendee perspective, that's what I'd be very excited about.
I think people ask me all the time, they go, what do you do for fun? You know, fun is a big premise of what we talk about at Midlife Mail. And we've kind of backed into it because at first the notion of fun as one of our F's seemed kind of juvenile, you know, novelty, you know. And what we found is it's actually really at the forefront for
Mm.
what
Yeah.
we do for fun as middle-aged men or anybody, you know, and also redefining, I think, as we get older, what fun really looks like, what kind
Yeah.
of fun we want to have and how we do it. So I always answer, I go, like, this is what I do for fun. I get to talk to men like yourself. I get to look for events and experiences to go to, like
Mm.
Eudaimonia, and say, okay, here's an opportunity to combine all of the things I'm really interested in. And what wouldn't be fun about that? 3 days down in the beach, you know, in West Palm, 90 plus speakers, working out with the greatest, you know, trainers and individuals and health and longevity specialists in the world. Also, I'll say going to, you know, being out there again with a lot of people that really look healthy, you know,
Mm.
healthy and happy and interested, and daytime, which I prefer over nighttime, you know,
Yeah.
now these
Another
days,
side effect of your 50s, right? Yeah. Um,
no doubt. Please, do
yeah.
you want to live to 100?
Um, It's actually a really good question. I want to live to 100 if I live healthy years. If my health span is 100 years, I would be thrilled to live to 100. If my health span is not, then, you know, honestly, I have uh it's interesting. I get asked quite often. I mean, you know, when you run a conference that at least touches, you know, on longevity, you're always asked about, you know, you start getting asked about death and what you think of that. And you know, we have people like Brian Johnson who's actively trying to end death as a thing. And you know, I guess just for me, another thing that I tend to view a bit philosophically is that, you know, can you know light without darkness? And I do think that there's something very inherent in the, you know, in the all the beauty that humans have created through civilization in the last, you know, 5,000 years, that if you were to have removed the possibility of death and the uncertainty and the possibility of suffering in that sense and all of the other aspects that have motivated and informed our experience, we wouldn't be the same. And I don't think we'd have the same art, and I don't think we'd have the same humanities, and I don't think we'd have the same philosophy. And so it's not to say that it would be worse, but I guess just for me, you know, I think death is in a lot of ways a motivator, and obviously avoiding it is a motivator, and it leads to us trying to do great things, a lot of the time, and trying to treat ourselves better and trying to create a legacy. So, you know, I'm not really in the camp of, you know, in that sense of wanting to live forever, but would I love to live to be 100 or as long as I can with health? Absolutely. I think it's great. This planet is filled with wonderful, wonderful people and wonderful ideas, and there's always something exciting and new to learn. Um, I did want to just say one thing about your comment about fun, though, which I think is interesting. Wanderlust, when I started that, I mean, the whole idea at first, I think, was seen as slightly strange because people are like, well, why do I want to, I don't know, do I want to go to a festival that's about doing yoga and meditating? And, it's just, I think the concept or the definition of whether it's fun to be healthy or to work out or all those things, well, I think, we answered that question. It is fun, and it's fun for a large variety of people for a number of different reasons. But I think the other reason it's fun is that, we try to create experiences that while we're very serious about the ideas and information being conveyed, we're serious about the practices. Everything in between is geared to be incredibly fun and entertaining because, it's not designed to be sit there and listen to people conference. It's designed to sort of feel a little more like a festival. So that's what I hope people get. So I think the fun will definitely be there.
Hmm. What's I know you haven't even we haven't even gotten to eudaimonia yet, but what's next? Like in the vision, is it every year? Like what do you say? Oh, here's what I think in 3 years, 5 years. I'm 54 now. It's 60. I think it's going to be this. Do you think like that?
Yeah, I mean, I have a long-term vision for this. The I plan to stay here in West Palm, first of all, but I would like to see the event grow. The campus that we have now, I think it would be very feasible to see the event expand out into downtown West Palm. There's a Kravis Center across the street, a beautiful performing arts center, and there's a number of other places as we get to downtown. And, I guess just for me, scale is not about financial issues or anything like that. Scale is about bringing health to more people, right? So if you can find ways to make the experience as compelling as it is at 2 or 3,000 people for 5,000 or 10,000 people, then I think that's a win for everybody. And, I think there are ways to do that here that would be fun and exciting. I also think a little bit about accessibility. Obviously, it's not a quote unquote cheap ticket to come to see all of these speakers for 3 days. And, I would love to find ways to, sort of create more accessible and affordable experiences that are integrated. And maybe it's not the full, see every expert thing, but there are, side experiences I think that could still be very valuable. So, what inspires me, I mean, I've been to South by Southwest many times. And always been impressed by how they've expanded that conference and really how it's come to integrate into the very fabric of downtown Austin, where, literally every corner you turn to, there's somebody doing something related to the event. And, I can imagine that in a health version here in West Palm, and where, you're bringing in all the studios and the wellness businesses and MedHouse and all of these places. And you are really just attracting, creating the defining health conference and health summit around. And that would make me pretty happy. It would also make me pretty happy to pass the reins to someone else to run all that. But we'll get there when the time comes.
Sean, this has been great. I really, really appreciate all your time. I'm super excited to get down there at Eudaimonia, plan my schedule for the weekend, and have a lot of fun, learn a lot, and experience a lot. So thank you for doing this because it's a project, okay, that I am super, super blessed to be around guys like yourself to take this on so that I get to consume and hopefully pay it forward to a lot of other guys out there and say, hey, this is where you need to go. These are the people you need to be around. This is what we can do for fun, and start balancing those demographics a little bit out, the way
Yeah.
the way I think ultimately we'd like to see them, and be in good company with more like-minded men and women and everybody out there. So thank you for sharing your time. Thank you for doing this. I get the easy job, which is great. And I'm really, really looking forward to it. And I know this is the kind of information, the kind of experiences that we just need to get out there and build greater awareness for and hear from more men like yourself, because we're all in this together. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you. That's very, very kind of you to say, Greg, and appreciate all the work you're doing too. And thank you for, of course, the support. I guess I will see you in West Palm in November.
You absolutely will. And we got a few great weeks. So let's keep talking it up.
Amazing.
Yes. Thank you so much, Sean. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to chat. So are you are you coming down with some friends or other folks or?
So I'm not sure. I may be coming down with my wife because now that my wife has looked into this, she's like, I want to go. I need to go.
Good, good, good.
She's very into this. Um, and then I'll work with your team. They've been great about setting up some potential, schedule interviews, other things to capture. And over the
Yeah.
next couple of weeks, as I mentioned, I'm gonna cut this up. We'll put this in our newsletter. We'll share the link that you guys gave to us and talk a little bit about even how I prep to go down for something like this, what I'm
Mhm.
interested in. Again, here's the criteria. I look at family, fitness, finance, and food. Like, what are my what and how do you make
I
it?
love your criteria, by the way. I think they're really great. It's a nice focusing tool set, I gotta say.
Thank you. Look, I appreciate it. Much to I think what you're talking about in curating an event, like what I'm really trying to do is help guys be able to curate what success looks like for them, what
Yep.
happiness looks like for them.
Well,
And
you're in the eudaimonia business too, basically. I mean, I think it is what you do. Yeah.
no doubt, I came from, look, having produced films and various. I was, I don't have what you have. I'm like, okay. What I really, really enjoy doing is amplifying other individuals' brands and properties and projects that I think just have tremendous value
Yep.
for my life.
Hmm.
And I think they have tremendous value for my life and for my family. And under this umbrella, I think they will for a lot of other men who are struggling to maybe figure out what's important to them and
Hmm.
pull a little
Yep.
piece of how Sean thinks. Can you pull a little piece of how, Huberman thinks? Can you maybe pull a piece from Brian Johnson, although I haven't found that piece yet?
Yeah, well, he's an interesting one, but
And
he does
bring it
fascinate me. I mean, he's very, very intelligent and has a very clear vision of what he wants to do. I find it kind of fascinating, even though it's not the life I would choose to live. But it's funny. I actually think of myself in the same way maybe that you think of yourself. I mean, I see myself as a curator as well, because I'm not the expert, although I love to, of
Mhm.
course, I'm happy to talk to you and something, but I don't hold myself out to be an expert. I'm actually just the guy living a midlife, trying to do things that I'm passionate about. But the people that we've assembled, like that, those people, I really do think have some incredible wisdom to share. And I'm like you, just kind of wanting to amplify them and amplify the experience that the container that one can build around them.
Completely, completely agree. And that's where I think that, we are all doing this together and trying to be better together because that's what we're looking for. We may not be the experts, normal guys. I think that's what's relatable and credible and ultimately aspirational to a lot of men out there that they're like, okay, these guys are not experts. Like they're normal guys.
Yeah.
Don't look like this bodybuilder or sleeping in hyperbolic chambers. They don't look all of these things.
Yeah.
Okay, but we're working to figure out again a holistic way to live that works for
Yeah.
us. I think it's about, there's a lot of white space between doing nothing, being sedentary, and being kind of stuck and lost. And then the extremes of thinking you got to listen to 3.5 hours of Huberman a day. You got to take 80 something
Yeah.
pills.
Or be an ultra marathoner or something. Yeah, I absolutely agree with that too.
Middle.
And it's just like not everyone has the time to do that. It's also the value systems. I mean, this is kind of what is your personal eudaimonia? I mean, obviously we need to be healthy. And if you can't do the minimum, as you say, if you're like sedentary or eating bad food, I mean, that's gonna be bad for almost everyone. But there's a giant range of human possibility that is still a valuable, meaningful, successful, and healthy life between that. And, I think that's why, all the biohackers, for instance, I look at that world and I'm like, that's great. It's great. It works for you. I love having you at the event, but I don't hold that out as the goal in itself. It's more just like another way of living.
To me, it's a menu of ingredients. All of these
Yeah.
individuals and everything out there, those are all the ingredients in a way, theories that are available to you. And from
Yep.
that, we're pulling from it to determine kind of, hey, what does my recipe again look like? What do I want? And again, like I said, master the middle, figure out what it is for you. And if that's great and that works for you, wonderful.
Yep.
But it's not this zero sum, all or nothing game. And like you alluded to, it's all in the bucket. How much money do I have to go and attend and spend on these things? How much time do I have to go and
Yep.
invest in these things? Do I really care about having a six pack, or doing an ultra marathon? Or
Yeah.
would I rather, look, if the difference is sub 10% body fat and 15% body, like I'm very happy in this area. you know,
Yeah.
over.
Yeah.
And I think it's all great.
Yeah, for sure. Well, you're doing great work. So thank you for
Who are you?
that.
And I'm really super excited. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, we will, I'm sure, talk again soon. If you need anything, don't hesitate to reach out. You've got my direct line. So,
You got it. Thank you, Sean Stanley. Thank you so much. We'll talk
all
soon.
right. Thanks. Take care. Bye.
Great, thank you.